Thanks for coming. My name is Kevin Maney, and I'm up here hosting a panel that is officially called Give Your Content Love Handles. Given the obesity epidemic, I'm not sure if that's politically correct. And so I was thinking maybe we should call it Give Your Content, make your content viral, but then we got the swine flu, so I'm not sure we can do that one either. I was trying to come up with some kind of an analogy about dandelion seeds blowing in the wind or something, but that seemed a little wimpy for the journalism crowd, so I'm not sure what we're going to call this thing. But I'm up here with Lawrence Coburn, just to my left, the CEO of Rate It All. And to his left, Josh Belsman, who's the senior editor at MSNBC, and on the far end over here, Joan Walsh, who's the editor of Salon.com. And I am going to let them each introduce themselves and tell you in a brief couple of minutes what it is that they're involved in and why they're up here on the panel, and then we'll do a dive into all of this stuff about social media and how it can actually get your content out there in the hands of lots and lots of other people that don't necessarily just pop onto your website. So, Lawrence, give you a
Is this on? Thanks, Kevin. My name is, as Kevin said, my name is Lawrence Coburn. I'm the CEO and founder of a consumer review site called RateItAll.com. We are ratings and reviews of everything, and when I say everything, I mean everything. You can rate products and local businesses. You can also rate journalists, news publications, pretty much everything that you can possibly imagine. We've survived to date because we do a pretty good job with social media distribution. So we've never paid for advertising, but we're reaching about 1.5 million uniques a month, and it's mostly through social media distribution, search optimization, things like that. So I'm going to try and share a few of my tips around content distribution today.
Hi, and I'm Josh Belsman. I'm editor at MSNBC.com up in Redmond. I've served as a homepage editor and news editor and writer at MSNBC, and for the past year or so I've been working as a liaison between editors and our technical developers to try to make life easier for editors. And I'm here today to talk a bit about some processes you can put in place in the newsroom to make use of social networking, make it a part of your daily workflow, but not add to your workflow so much as make it a natural extension of things you're already doing.
That's great. I'm Joan Walsh. I'm the editor-in-chief of Salon.com. We're based in San Francisco, so it wasn't far for me to come. It's nice to see a lot of friends in the room. I'll be talking today about how we keep the social in social media. A lot of our discussions, you're going to hear great tips from both of these men, and we will learn from them, but I also think it's very important that it's not about widgets, it's not about share buttons entirely. It's also about having your writers and editors out on Twitter, out on Facebook, remembering that there is a social dimension and a relationship dimension to getting your content out in the world. So
Lawrence, you might be the most kind of technology and gadget and tool guy here. So I wanted to start with you and talk about some of the stuff that you're implementing and some of the stuff you're ignoring too.
Sure, absolutely. I'm going to start with what we're ignoring. Facebook applications. A couple years ago, it was a fantastic way to get your content out. A couple of companies abused the viral distribution on Facebook, and it's something we don't even think about anymore. MySpace, apologies to any Fox people out here. We're not thinking about MySpace anymore. In terms of the things that we are focused on, we're looking very carefully at sort of level 1 and level 2 Twitter integrations, Facebook integrations, and I can talk a little bit about that as we go on. We're also looking at things like exposing APIs, exposing our content so that other people can help us distribute our content. And finally, we see the iPhone as a whole new universe of users that we can potentially attract to our service that are different from the ones that we have today. So I think those are the hottest things out there that I see in social distribution, and maybe as we go on I can get a little more concrete about some tips for each of those.
So Josh, what about you in terms of a topic of what you're ignoring?
Right, well, Lawrence raises a great point. I mean, you need to identify what are the primary platforms that folks are using. and what are tools within your organization that you can maximize those platforms without adding too much to workflow. So I mean, very much take a look at your RSS feeds. I mean, this has been one of our focuses at MSNBC, and one of the strengths of our content management system is that pretty much every asset we have is available as an RSS feed. So that's great as a user if they just want to subscribe to something, but it's also very helpful for us in terms of putting together feeds that we can then send up to Facebook, so we've got our breaking news covered and don't have to worry about that, or to Twitter. Putting together a mobile site that reflects the navigation of our main blue site, as we call it, with little workflow involved there, or in developing an iPhone app, as we've done for several of our brand properties, including MSNBC, Today's Show, and Rachel Maddow's show, using existing feeds to make an interface that works on the iPhone, but again, does not add to workflow for editors.
Mm-hmm. Well, so actually just want to dive into something here. I think, if I remember this right, Josh, that you just recently developed the iPhone app.
Yeah, so we launched the Today Show app was the first one to come out. I think it's last fall or so. And since then, we've done the Maddow app, and now the MSNBC.com one. And yeah, each of them is kind of developed with that property in mind. So on the Today's Show app, you're going to find very much an emphasis on recipes and a recipe database. Again, that's back-end work that we already have and can leverage on that platform. You're going to find video, lifestyle information, and so you target the audience and the platform they're using. And in terms of things you ignore, maybe you don't need some of the ancillary feeds and navigation you have on a mobile site or on your main web platform. Just simplify it, but make it compelling for that platform.
So for those people who are out here, maybe trying to make a decision of, is it worth doing the iPhone app or not? Give us an idea of like how much it costs in terms of both money, time,
Right.
effort, and why you decided that it might be worth it, and whether you're finding it is or not.
Well, I think I'll stay away from specific numbers. I will say that measuring success in social media and mobile is very much an evolving situation right now, and it's different than on the website, where we're used to page views and clicks and unique users. We're seeing different kinds of measures of success and having to evolve our thinking a bit online. And so in terms of apps, I think just on the most basic level, they provide a bit of brand recognition and boost. We're seeing that this week with CNN. They were fairly late to the game with their iPhone app, but in taking time and developing some features and using their marketing clout, the thing's gotten quite a bit of buzz in the industry. And so, just at its most base level, I think apps can be useful for your organization is presenting yourself as technically evolved, and that you recognize your users are no longer just sitting at their desktop all day. Sorry, repeat part of the question.
Well, part of the question too was give us some idea of how difficult, easy, whatever it is to actually create an iPhone app that's of the sophistication level that you want at MSNBC.
Well, we outsourced. we used the Zumobi Networks is the name of the company we're working with. They developed all three of the apps. Their strength is in app creation. Our strength is in content creation, and like I said, we used existing assets in those feeds. They told us, and we worked with them to make special feeds if needed, to put together a video feed with a related text-based feed and then give that to them in a form that they could use in the app. So it's very much a partnership and building on strengths in each organization. I can't speak to how other media organizations are doing their apps, but in our case, we found that was the most efficient way to do it.
So in our case, just to jump in, we went out to try and hire an iPhone developer in-house to build a number of apps, and the market is still early enough that the good iPhone developers are making money on their own, and they don't want to go in-house anywhere. So we found a couple of guys that maybe would be good, but they were looking for $140,000, $150K a year, and that didn't seem like that seemed like an awfully big investment for a startup. So we ended up outsourcing it to a group, and I'll tell you the numbers. It's costing us $15K to build a really full-featured iPhone app that's as good as some of the most popular ones out there. And it's basically a company being run by a couple sophomores at Penn State. And they built the Dig iPhone app. They've built the Onions iPhone app. So I'm not going to tell you who they are because they're working on our project. But I think there's a lot of value to be had outsourcing the first one, learning from it, getting control of the code, and then if this is something that takes off, then jumping into the water full on and hiring somebody full time.
Just briefly, what did you want your app to do?
Yeah, so it's not launched yet, so I can't go too far into it, but it's basically taking advantage of location. It's like a consumer review app that takes advantage of location and tries to integrate the principles of gaming, fun, ubiquity, and a few other things. So the big thing with iPhone is, my understanding, the big thing with iPhone is that you don't want to just replicate your website. You want to take advantage of the unique functionality that the device brings, whether or not you're using augmented reality or whether or not you're using location or compass or things like that. So my advice is don't just copy your website and your iPhone app, but make sure you're using something that takes into advantage the unique abilities of the device.
So, Joan, no Slate iPhone app yet? Are you making that decision, or what's going on?
We are looking at it, and we're very likely to do it, and I'm going to get that name out of Lawrence if it's the last thing I do today. We have a hugely Mac-centric audience, so it makes a lot of sense for us. We have to do that.
And are you're sure you're going to, you're not weighing the decision, you're sure that that's the direction you want to go in?
I'm sure it's the direction we want to go in, where it fits in our priorities right this minute, this afternoon. There's a Friday priorities meeting, and I'm missing it to be here, so I can't tell you where it is, but it's pretty high. We think it's important.
We were talking earlier, you feel like Slate has been late to the game, but maybe not too late. But tell me what you've been observing and what you think you might want to be doing in this area of trying to be social and get out there.
Well, Salon has been a little bit late to the game.
I call you Slate.
Yeah,
I'm
did.
sorry.
It's okay.
I'm really.
It happens.
You can beat me for that one afterwards.
I take it as a compliment, Kevin. It's fine. We're in the middle of a redesign, which should go public. It's in beta. I can invite you all if you want. I'm very excited about it, and that will have every kind of share function. But in the meantime, waiting for that redesign, we've really put a lot of emphasis on what Josh has talked about, which is training our staff to be we've focused heavily on Twitter and Facebook with some attention to Dig, and really getting people to understand that it's not about merely spewing out content, every story you write one way, one-dimensional, that it really is about participating in all of those places, or maybe not all. Maybe, pick a few that you feel an affinity for. I'm certainly crazy about Twitter and not as active other places. And really developing a presence, developing a relationship. We really saw that technology matters. We're looking forward to using all this great stuff, but that relationships matter. Being a real person matters, and all of our people are stressed out and busy. But if you teach people how to make it fun and make it quick, as Josh says, it doesn't have to be you're spending hours a day working on all these social sites. You'll get a lot of feedback. You'll see we've tripled our social media referrals. I mean, that's on a small base, but month over month they're growing, really strongly. So when you start to see it in the numbers, you get that positive feedback, and then when you also start to see it in the relationships that you build, I think it's sort of changed the nature of Salon. I guess the other thing I'd say quickly is that Salon did something very innovative about a year and a half ago, which is we added our own blogging platform, Open Salon. The idea of Scott Rosenberg, who's here in the audience, took us a while to implement it, but there are a couple of advantages to that. We've got a lot of member loyalty. We've got great content that we elevate to the Salon site daily, several times a day. But they, too, the members have been really adept at using Reddit and Dig, as well as Twitter and Facebook, to evangelize for their own site. So in addition to our 50-person staff, we've now got 35,000 members. They're not all active, but we've got thousands of active members out in the world sending out Salon links and participating in this in this great social sphere. So that's been an incredible human advantage to us too. So we'll catch up on the technology side, and then we'll really take over.
Just a quick question: why do you feel that that people are willing to spend their time to essentially blog for Salon for free? I'm assuming, and do that work for you.
Media Bistro is running a series on sort of changes in UGC, and I really wish I had the URL with me, but I'll send it to you later. Somebody from Open Salon wrote the most wonderful explanation of why she does it, and it's partly for the audience, it's partly for the community. Writers feel really at risk right now. We have a lot of, good or bad, we have a lot of journalists who've lost their jobs, who want to stay connected, who want to feel that that words matter and that information matters, and so they go there, they get an audience, they get people commenting on what they've written. It's a very supportive site. It's not snarky and people looking to pull each other down. Really smart people, really great content, and they came for our audience. We have 5 million uniques a month. You can be on Blogspot by yourself, building your traffic that way, or you can come to Salon and build on ours. So
let me ask both of you guys a question, and then I want to come back to Lawrence about Twitter. But the way that Twitter has evolved in most newsrooms has been that individuals decide to do it, and they start doing it, whatever their idea of what they should use Twitter like is what they do, and they usually tweet about their own stories or about their own experiences. And I don't know if you guys have instituted anything like a Twitter policy,
oh God,
or something that creates at least a guideline for how your folks should use it, or a way that you encourage people to use it, or integrate it into the way you're operating your site or your newsroom. At some point, like all things, we're going to get there probably, but I wonder where you are.
The Washington Post got there, and not very productively in my
Really?
opinion. Yeah, I mean, our writers are grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
I can see having guidelines. Don't tweet, if you're a reporter, highly opinionated stuff about your beat. But this, the idea that you can't, the guidelines were so stringent. Nothing about religion, politics, sex, relationships. It's like, what the hell would you then tweet about? And I see that some writers are ignoring it, and I won't mention their names, but I'm proud of them. Our writers are grown-ups. They have good judgment. What we really focused on was the etiquette of not having it be me, having it be, retweeting great stuff that you're seeing around. That's honestly, it sounds really altruistic. It's the fastest way that I got followers. People see that you are paying attention to them. It's like the link economy. And also be a person. I tweet about baseball and I tweet about my puppy, and I probably have a third of my followers are politics, puppy, baseball, and we encourage that.
Josh, what?
Yeah, I think Joan raises a great point about keeping your tweets and your social media presence at a personal level. I mean, our company is got a huge audience, and it's easy to become kind of a monolithic hose of content. And so I think we've taken a phased approach, and it wasn't always something we set in stone. And we're definitely the policy continued to evolve with the technology. But at the moment, our writers, many of them have their own Twitter accounts, and they'll interact with both their friends and their audience, and oftentimes it's one and the same. Talk about stories. Tweet their own material, retweet other people's material. Recently, we've set up a bit more of a process in the newsroom to try to bubble up the best viral material, and that was going to be one of my points I wanted to mention to folks and we've made it part of kind of the usual pitching process they're doing anyway, in terms of like pitching to their section editors or to the homepage. Well, now we have like a viral alias. If this story seems like a talker, it prompts some question in folks' mind. It's one of those things that people want to share and want to be, recognized. And this kind of gets to the psychology of blogging and
right.
sharing links and retweeting.
Make sure I understand this. It's a way, if a particular reporter, say, is pitching a story, it's a way for them to support the idea that this is a good story,
Yep.
because they could say, hey, look, this has been, retweeted constantly. And,
Well, it's actually getting to. We're doing the pitching before getting it out. So we're pitching it to an editor, myself, and we've got a few others in the company who then put that stuff out on kind of our general feeds or Facebook. And this is where being smart about what you post and where you post it. If it's more visual content, like say a slideshow, well, that's probably going to work better on Facebook. This thumbnail is going to show up on everyone who's your fan, and they're going to send it along to friends and so on, or the friends are going to see it on their wall. If it's a little bit of gossip or a vote, we've tried to point people to our community site Newsvine by tweeting some of the hot questions of the day. Whether it's should Obama be going to Denmark to pitch Chicago for the games, or what do you think about the Kanye thing? And that gets the idea of being encouraging participation, so we're not just shouting a headline. And I think you'll find, if you look at referrals and retweets, that a lot of times, like a hard news headline that tells the story in the headline isn't going to be retweeted. Everybody's sending it out.
Mm-hmm.
We've all got our feeds hooked up. So you want to inform people, but you also want to engage them with some of these other kinds of stories. And that's where this process comes in, kind of a second level.
Well, so Lawrence, you want to jump in, but also one point I want to make is, so all of your content is user generated.
Correct.
How does Twitter play into that?
Yeah, so in terms of the mechanics of Twitter distribution, I think there's really 4 levels you need to think about. Like, the first and the easiest and the simplest that probably everybody in this room is doing to some extent is making share on Twitter accessible, exposed, don't hide it in a giant sharing tool menu. So that's level 1. Level 2 is you want to start to think about two-way Twitter integration. So, like, some of the interesting things that are happening out there, there's these blog commenting systems. Discuss and JSKit are the 2 big ones. They've built products that actually not only push content out to Twitter, but pull back relevant content from Twitter discussion. So, for example, if there's a tweet out there that references a particular news story, these commenting systems can aggregate that tweet back, so it's part of the discussion on your domain. Pretty powerful stuff. I'd say that's level 2. Level 3 is to start thinking about, there's 2 ways to find stuff on Twitter, right? There's like, the people that you follow are exposing content to you, and also Twitter search. And people, to me, seem to forget about the Twitter search part. There's this giant index of search results being built out over there that, with no algorithm behind it, it's all just chronological. So Josh talked a little bit about being very human with your tweets. I think that's really important in terms of getting more followers. But in terms of getting your content into the search index for Twitter, you need to make sure you have the keywords in there, and you need to find a regular way to get it out. So what we've done is, for different categories on our site, we have auto tweets that post when new activity is happening. So, hey, a new review was just posted of ONA09, and that goes out with a link to our site. Now, you can't hit this too hard because Twitter doesn't like people to be filling up their search index, but if it's on topic and it's linked to a real activity on your site, it's not spam. So it's just a way to show up in the search index. And the 4th point, it has to do with URL shortening, and this is something that I feel really strongly about, is that especially for you guys with short domains like salon.com and msnbc.com, like, there's no need to use somebody else's URL shortener tool. Twitter isn't going anywhere. You want to have your brand protected as those links are passed around in the web. We built a URL shortener for Rate It All. It took us about 6 hours. So it's basically just rateitall.com/number, and that number is associated with a URL in our site. And then you can redirect those URLs to the full URL when it gets back to your site. Right. So, like, when you talk about Twitter, the mechanics of Twitter distribution, like, there's many different layers, and there's probably even more aggressive things than those things that I just talked about. But think about those kind of 4 right there.
That's interesting. How many of you guys thought about this idea about URLs in
I'm pretty
Twitter?
interested in it.
You're writing it down.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point.
We're in the process of doing that too, because obviously we have our URLs with all of our various, the date, the slug, they're long. So we have been using outside shorteners, but we're trying to build one in-house and have that on the site, so that if you see something you like, that's what you're sending out, and it says salon.com.
Okay. What? Let's each, if you can, talk about something that maybe is a little bit new and on the fringe right now that maybe you're trying or looking at in widgets or apps or any of those kinds of things. Lawrence, you got?
Sure. It's not super new, but it's something that I think everybody should be looking. Anybody that has any sort of online community on their site should be looking at Facebook Connect. And I talked in my opening comments about how one thing that we were ignoring was the Facebook platform. We're not ignoring Facebook Connect. I think this is something that's only going to grow in popularity. And as a content publisher, Facebook Connect does a couple of different things for us. The big one for community, and especially for folks that are running religion or political content that can really attract some radical viewpoints, what Facebook Connect does for you is it brings in real identity. So people are a lot more likely to behave if they have their real identity associated with their post. So that's just one. It also lowers the registration hurdle to participate in your community because it's just a 2-click process. They can log in with their Facebook credentials. It also gives you distribution because any story, anything that's posted to your site can push out to the Facebook newsfeed. I mean, a friend of mine has a site that basically broke Facebook last week. Facebook Connect site went to 0 to 11 million users in a week. And it was basically exposing a vulnerability in photo tagging, and some of you might remember this. But the point is not to try and break Facebook. The point is you can still get the benefits of viral distribution via Facebook Connect, without building a standalone app for Facebook. So I think Facebook Connect brings a lot to the table. And if you're not looking at it, it's a really low-risk thing to try it.
Did you feel like there were any disadvantages to it?
The only core disadvantage is that you don't get the email address as part of Facebook Connect. However, you can get around that. You can ask for the email address in the next field if you want to. And also, I expect Facebook to open up their messaging API so that you can, as opposed to sending them an email, you can send them a message on Facebook at some point. But that's really the only downside that we see. And it's not even a huge deal because Facebook Connect doesn't have to replace your existing registration system. It can be as a complement.
A second.
So.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you explain more why you say you're not dealing with Facebook widgets? Just too much time and trouble? Or?
Yeah, so we built one, and it seemed that every week the Facebook APIs were changing. Our app would break. We didn't know why. We'd have to basically run it like a parallel business, where we had to have engineers devoted to it. And then with the redesign of Facebook, right now it's all about the newsfeed, right? So any sort of widgety panel is now just a non-factor on Facebook because it's off to the side. So you need to focus on things that get into that river, to get into that newsfeed. And Facebook Connect does it. And if you use Facebook Connect on your own site, you still control your own revenue models, right? So it's to me, you get all the advantages without the disadvantages of the Facebook platform.
Let's do this too, and we'll get to Josh and Joan on this same question. We have a hard stop at 1 because of lunch, so let's get them to do that and start. If you have questions, please go to the microphone so everybody can hear. But let's get everybody involved in this conversation.
Yeah. For the past, it's been about 2 or 3 months now that we've been experimenting with bringing Twitter streams onto our site alongside live video events, and we've been using a couple different widget makers and platforms to do that. For live video events, we've primarily been using a company called Tinker, which makes a unique widget in that it allows you to sign in and tweet right from the widget itself. And they've been great to work with, and we've been able to bring in a Twitter stream based on keywords and filter out profanity. So we have some level of control. In fact, they have a moderation feature that we haven't really had to use because the tweets for the most part have been on point, and then which is rare. Then we've taken a step further by creating a new tab that would feature our related content and content from our partners. So for an example of this, during some of Obama's healthcare town halls and his speech to Congress, etc., we've been able to have a chat widget going that's showing this organic conversation or shouting going on out in the Twitter universe, but we're bringing in just the ones mentioning healthcare type terms. We've got our partners, our own content, video, politics content, some of our partner content going in another tab, and then we even had a writer like log on, our national affairs writer log on and do some instant analysis. So in that way, we've kind of got like different levels of analysis, commentary, the live, unfiltered event from the president. I think it's been a very unique experience and kind of allows you to add some context around these events. So that's something I'm excited about. It takes a bit of work to set these up. I think some of the lessons learned have been that kind of need to set the bar realistically on these. At this point, we're not ready to do it with like every live event, so pick your spots and where it makes most sense. And then in terms of the value of the instant analysis, I think to try to give this stuff a bit of a shelf life, we then went back and like posted our writers' tweets and some of the other partners' tweets. It's kind of a log of the event, like what did the writer tweet after the president said this. So you kind of get a recap, and I'm sure there's dynamic ways to do that with video capture, and probably something we'll look at.
We did something similar. We did in a partnership with Current TV last year for the presidential debates. It was fairly interesting. We haven't done it on our own. We experimented over inauguration with running our selected staff members' live tweets on the cover. I don't really think it worked. I think it was more of a gimmick. We're very interested in Facebook Connect, and we are interested in figuring out new ways of harvesting good, relevant Twitter content, whether it's from our users, from our staff, that's not just, OMG, I can't believe he said that, and that's really a challenge. We'll probably do it complete with the OMGs because we want to try it and see what's there. But I'm not saying everything out there is just going to rock your world and improve your site if you have it. So we're trying to balance.
And please, if you have questions, come up to the microphone and let us know. We'll get you involved here. A quick question while we're waiting for that. You guys are all at companies that have some budgets to be able to do something like spend $15K on an iPhone app and that kind of thing. There probably are some people in the room here who are representing small little startup sites that don't have those kinds of budgets. What would you tell them in this realm of making social media really work for them? Tell them to say, aim at first.
I mean, there's all kinds of, if you're running a blog, with your own personal blog, you can start experimenting with some of these social media tools, like the blog commenting stuff is an obvious one. Like that taps you into a network of blog commenters, and the two to check out are Disqus, DISQUS, and JS-Kit, JS-Kit. But that gets you access to you can do things like start aggregating comments about your posts and about you from around the web on your own blog. It's a really easy way to start.
I've found that a lot of the widgets and tools we've used have been available for free, and they're in beta form, and we're already in an experimentation realm anyway. So and talk to your IT folks. If they're not too freaked out about using some of this stuff, then I say go for it. And I've actually found the app developers, or I should say widget developers, quite helpful and willing, because they want their product to get seen out there, and they want some legitimacy behind it. And as a news organization, you offer them those qualities. So I wouldn't view financial barriers as the biggest concern. In my line of thinking, it's more about how much time do you want to devote to this, and how are you going to make it part of your workflow. The money, maybe down the line they'll start charging, and you'll have to add that into the equation. But for now, things seem pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, one more really quick, easy tool. The easiest way to make a widget is to take your site's RSS feed that your site probably already has and convert it into a widget. And there's tools out there that will help you. The best tool is Widgetbox, and you get it. Basically, you paste in your blog's RSS feed, and it makes a nice widget, either JavaScript or Flash, whatever you want, out of that. It's ad supported, but if you pay a little bit, you can get rid of the ads in that widget.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, we've been using Widgetbox quite a bit. It's great functionality, and it's just in the last couple months, it's really grown up. I mean, you can now combine like a single Twitter account and call that out, and your readers can subscribe to it. You can have another tab that's got a mashed up RSS feed of multiple Twitter accounts filtered on a keyword. You can just do all kinds of really neat things that bring context to the noise of Twitter. So.
Great.
Right.
And Joan, anything to add to that?
I
before we
think
get to our-
everything I talked about was, almost entirely independent of engineering. It's just really how much, you and your staff are willing to put into it personally. You can do a lot. And they're right, there are a lot of free tools out there, so.
Okay, we have a question.
I manage a hyperlocal news website for Patch.com, and one of the things that our site template does is it posts the most recent Twitter update from each of our editors on the top of that site. But it's on its own, and it appears to a lot of people who are not familiar with Twitter that it's essentially just a headline or something like that. And I'm curious to know what your feedback might be in terms of how the placement of tweets on your sites affects what to tweet and how to tweet, and just the perception of what that is and how that plays with other content on the site.
My personal opinion on that is that I know FriendFeed took a lot of heat for being too early adopter-ish, because basically their homepage was just a feed. Like, it was just stuff coming through, and it was very sparse. And conventional wisdom says that regular internet users, whoever those are, prefer a little more guidance. But beyond that, I don't have much of an opinion. We've totally gone full in on the River newsfeed format, because I think that's one in terms of social media. So I would be hesitant to pull out that feed. I think Ev and Twitter are doing a good enough job getting the word out that more and more people are starting to understand that format every day.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time, but maybe it's also a matter of the prominence that you give it, that it maybe needs to be, embedded with other things that are more important up high. We had, when we were doing it over the inauguration, it was so much fun, but it was also like, I don't know. I think we've gotten to the realm of trivia, and you really do tweet differently when you're tweeting for a real audience than even for your thousands of Twitter followers. So I think you have to give more thought and more direction and organization to your staff if you're going to do that.
I'm a bit more interested in how you're using the feed. Are you pointing to other content on the site, or are these more just kind of observations from folks in the newsroom at any given time?
All of the above. I will both, link to, with our branded short URLs, a story or a piece of content on the site. I'll retweet things that are relevant and can stand on their own. I will sometimes live blog from using Twitter from a meeting or something important where I can write essentially short headlines there. Anything that kind of will, I try to make it so that it will work out of context for those who aren't familiar with Twitter, but it's not just one thing. I use it for all of those applications.
Is there some kind of link that, or page that describes what this is used for?
It does say that it's Twittered, but some people who are unfamiliar with what that means, and even though it does link back to the Twitter page, this doesn't necessarily
you
get
might
it.
just set up a page that explains what this thing is and what they're likely to see in it.
Right.
Put a little info button or something.
You know what you should do is you should swap that out for the location API that Twitter's in the process of launching. So if people see a Twitter stream of stuff about their neighborhood, it may be self-explanatory.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Josh, I wanted to ask you. You're probably you're more video heavy than the others up here, I'm sure, and a lot of what we've been talking about has been the sort of text-based kinds of social interaction. Anything on the video horizon that you're really interested in that might, in socializing video?
Yeah, well, video poses some challenges. And I'm probably not best suited to get into the intricacy of it, but just based on the ad models involved with video and making it embeddable, and what rights do we have to let people share this. I think we're working on that. I think we're getting much closer on our site to making it much easier for folks to clip and post video and distribute it virally, over Facebook and Twitter. But I think I mean, I think right now our emphasis has been getting folks back to our rich media players, providing links basically back to our video player where they're going to see more related video and links to stories and that kind of thing. But also giving them, once they're in that player, they can then go and kind of personally manipulate the video and make their own snippet if they want and then post it somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And also, well, I've got you on the hot seat here to another thing. The other thing we have talked about, and I wanted you to get a little bit more into, is this idea of actually integrating the idea of social, media, social, reaching out into your actual processes in the newsroom of MSNBC.
Right. So we've done this in a couple cases recently. We've got a project going now. It's kind of a daily fact check of healthcare myths and claims being made, and we've tried to open that up beyond just being like an email form where we solicit questions from folks, but have also been tweeting that day's installment and asking folks to send in their claim with like a hashtag that we can then track. And so we've made it kind of part of that feedback loop, and okay, here's another channel we're going to check. And it's easy enough to do with any number of Twitter apps, or on Twitter itself, save a search for that hashtag and see what folks are asking or how they're retweeting. We've also, a couple weeks ago, I think there was a Meet the Press interview with President Obama, and so we solicited questions for David Gregory to ask Obama, using our varied social channels ahead of time, Mm-hmm. So in addition to like a link on the website, we put it up on Facebook, send out a prompt on Twitter to ask for questions, and then a producer at Meet the Press is checking for responses.
Mm-hmm. So it's all sort of a piece, basically.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Lawrence, I want to ask you. You seem to be actually full of lots of little interesting tools and web, sites and that people can take advantage of. And I thought I'd give you an opportunity to throw out a few others if you've got some.
There was an article just a couple days in the New York Times by Brad Stone about sharing and how that can have such a positive impact on your site. And I agree with that. I do think that the sharing thing has spiraled out of control a little bit. Like a lot of these sites, they have one sort of like mysterious icon, whether it's like a plus or like some sort of a widgety looking thing. And if you click that, it blows up this giant menu of like all these different sites with crazy names and no vowels, and like somewhere in there you'll see like an email icon if you're lucky, and like somewhere in there you'll see a Twitter icon. And we used to do that. Like it was exciting because like all these neat sites want to distribute our content. This is great. We're going to give the user lots of choice, and everybody's going to be able to find the right destination for them for the content. And it really was overwhelming, I think, for people. So what we did is we reduced, and we made a like a company-wide decision to focus only on 4 channels. And I would say for most folks, it's probably 3 channels. But those channels are, no surprises. Right now it's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's email, which for us still like dwarfs social media distribution, and the 4th one is widgets, just because we're very widget focused in our site, because widgets give you backlinks which help your search rankings, and it sort of has that extra bonus to it. So my only advice to you is like when people read a story on your site, make sure they see the Twitter and Facebook buttons. Don't make them drill down through different menus. Call out the channels that matter and leave everything else like for the super users.
Unless we have some other questions from the audience, I want to ask one last thing of Joan, and we can all go to lunch, but but you said at the beginning, and we've talked about this too, is that this idea that you can't actually just rely on the technology and on all of the stuff being on your site. There's something else. There's something else that has to do with the way you build relationships, and I just wanted you to talk about that because I think that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, Kevin. I think that one of the great revolutions of the web is that, it really has forced a lot of journalists to be more personal, be more themselves, be out there, be transparent, take questions, take challenges. Starting from the time we automated our letters into Open Salon, and now with all of us being out there on, Twitter and other places. And I think that it's a kind of natural transformation of where our industry is going. That you have to be present and you have to be accountable, and these are also ways for people to hold you accountable. That's not really what happens, but to find you accessible and to interact with you, because people are not passive consumers of media anymore. They really, even if they don't want to necessarily write their own stories or create their own video, they want to have a say, and they want to be able to go a step farther than just reading your excellent writing. So I think it's really been a change in our entire mindset, not just, including Open Salon, not just, some of us like to Twitter and we think it's really good for traffic. I really think it's a part of the evolution of our industry, and it's brought us a lot.
Okay. Well, with that, please thank our three guests.